Good morning, everyone. Julio Guzman, Demetrius Knowles. It is Talk Visual. We are here to give you guys the latest and greatest and the newest trends going on, not only in this community, but all throughout Miami-Dade County. Demetrius, how you doing today, man?
Man, good morning to you, brother. It's good seeing you as always. I know we always shake on it to make sure that we speak it as one voice to try to bring the locals all the good stuff that's
Yeah.
going on that we are experiencing, and we wanted to hear, what's good out there and what's trending, and so let's get right into it, man. So
Awesome.
what's going on? I mean, how's the housing market? How's the trend for you? How's that going on?
Well, that's a very good topic to start with. It's
Let's
what
get
I
right
do
in it.
for a living.
Yes, sir. Right. Let's jump right in.
So there's some interesting things happening in the real estate market. Miami-Dade County has been an influx of a lot of money recently. There's been a lot of millionaires. There's been a lot of capital come to the Miami-Dade market, and
Right.
sometimes, since we live what we consider the suburbs of Miami-Dade County,
Right. Right.
we hope that some of those millions will
Trickle in the trickle effect, right?
trickle its way down here.
Right.
We've been here a long time. We've been
Yeah.
here 40 plus years, and we have seen extreme growth, like
Right.
at an astronomical level.
Yep.
I mean, there's building everywhere. I don't know if you've recently driven down US 1,
I
but
have
there are apartments everywhere you look.
everywhere. Right.
And sometimes you drive down because if you're going up north, you typically jump on the turnpike
Right.
and you don't normally go down US 1, but once in a
Wow.
while, you're like,
Take that
yeah, let me
ride.
go down US 1. And you look and you
Yeah.
go, when did all of
This
this
happened. It's
happen?
like, wow, I didn't see that. That wasn't your last month.
Overnight, these things
Yeah.
happen. So, you know, um, one of the owners of one of those new buildings, they reached out because they have some vacancies
Mhm.
and they wanted some help because obviously if you're a business owner, if you're a building owner, you don't want to have
Vacancies.
vacancies.
No, not at all.
So they reached out and they said, hey, can you come over here and take a look and maybe help market and promote this building? I think they had like a 40% vacancy.
Wow.
But the real estate agents typically don't push their clients in that direction because they don't pay commissions,
Right.
right? So most of the time, the real estate agents are always working with a homeowner like
Homeowner.
yourself.
Right. Right.
You say,
Right.
hey, please help
Yeah.
me,
Rent.
rent
Rent.
out my property.
Right.
But those buildings don't pay commission, so a lot of the real estate agents don't push their clients that way.
Okay.
So I asked the gentleman, I said, hey, I think you could,
An opportunity. There's an opportunity
immediately
here.
handle this vacancy situation if you were to consider paying a commission. And he
Right.
says, oh, we don't do that, because we've got a large interest payment to make on a monthly basis.
Right.
But I said, that's understandable, but understand that when realtors find a tenant, that tenant is going to bring usually their first month security
Security.
deposit in the last month.
Correct. First, last security.
So they will immediately, within a few months, fill up their building
Right.
without having to take any money out of their pocket.
Right.
And then they've got a nice balance sheet because now you're
You're
full.
in it. But I have a question on that side too. If you think about it, if they don't have that space filled, they still have to pay.
Correct.
So if you take a small hit the first month, you simply have in the next 3 to 5 years to make up.
But that's what I'm getting at. They don't have to take the hit the first month
Right.
because those funds are not coming out of their bottom line
Right.
initially.
Ah,
The
okay.
tenant is the one that's bringing the first, last, and security. So depending on how long that tenant stays there,
Right.
if it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, that's when they will have to return their security deposit.
Right.
And that's what's going to affect the bottom line. But initially, if I was in their position, I would want my building fully occupied
Yes, at all
in the
times.
shortest amount of time.
Totally agree there. So man, that's some good information out there. Location. Where is that located? Is it in a good segment of town
I'll tell you,
or?
it's like in the Naranja area.
Okay.
Naranja, since
Yeah.
we've been here a long time, it's been kind of depressed.
Yeah.
But since the county wants to enhance
Revitalize.
ridership,
Yeah. Okay.
enhance ridership on the bus rapid transit zone, they created the rapid transit zone. So they've created incentives for developers to develop astronomical amounts of density
Right.
near the busway.
Okay.
So that's why you see all these apartment buildings popping up right near the
Okay.
busway. But what I'm noticing is it's oversaturated now. The inventory levels there are through the roof.
Right.
So if you were an investor thinking about maybe building, a 100-unit
Right.
apartment building there, I'd be kind of
Cautious.
yeah, I'd be cautious
Caution.
because there's too much,
Too
and
much.
then the tenants will have so many options to choose from
Right.
that you might,
Why
run
choose
into.
you?
You might run into that,
Right.
oversaturated population of units in that area. Now,
Okay.
in terms of housing, people buying houses, what I'm noticing is the interest rates are still hovering around 6.5 to 8%.
Right. Do you foresee that changing? Because we're all kind of waiting to see what happens. We thought the 2 and 3% was high, and
Yeah,
now the norm is six
right,
to seven.
right.
At some point, is it? You think it's going to kind of settle into that being the norm?
I think it's going to be a while. The feds might lower the interest rate a little bit, but I know it has a lot to do with inflation,
Right.
and the tariffs that have been imposed have created a lot of uncertainty with
Right.
buyers. So it's almost like buyers are on pause
Right.
at the moment.
Right. Let's see what happens.
Right. Let's see what happens, and it's making it a bit uncomfortable for me,
For all of us, in fact.
especially
Yeah.
when I represent sellers.
Right.
And I typically I put your house on the market, I price it right,
Right.
and I give you all the data to help you understand why this is the recommended list price.
Right.
Then
Okay.
all of a sudden you do all the things correctly, and now the market, the houses are just sitting on the market for 90,
180
180
days.
plus days.
Wow.
So then the seller is starting to say, hey, wait a
Hey.
minute, I thought you were the
Right.
guy,
Right.
showed me all this, this information on why my house is priced correctly, but it's the market shifting. So we're now in what we consider a buyer's market.
Okay.
S-
I
s-
mean, as an investor out there, you tend to want to find out, hey, excuse me, when does the market shift? And what's happening now? Should we just sit idle, or now is the time to buy? Like the stock market, right? You want to buy
Right.
now. Now is the time to buy. The market is down, and so right now you think it's a
It's
buyer's
trending.
market.
It's trending down.
Right.
There's some investors that might want to wait a little bit longer so that their cap rates can get into the double digits.
Right.
But if you've got money to go, because I always think put the money to work.
Right. Right.
Money sitting in the bank account isn't doing anything for anybody.
Nope.
So put the money to work. Overall, historically, housing is always a good investment,
Right.
and it's always going to appreciate. You just got to wait it out.
Right.
So I think it's a good time to invest. There's a lot of inventory, so you've got a lot of choices on where you can invest your money in the housing market. And something else that I've noticed is the number of people buying in Homestead
Hmm.
and the category or the demographics of where that influx is coming from.
Yeah.
Surprisingly,
Where
the,
is it coming from,
the
by the way?
greatest number of people buying in Homestead
California, maybe?
are Haitians.
What? I
Haitians.
didn't know that.
Shout out to Haiti.
That's
Shout out to
right.
Haiti. Stop
Ça passe. Okay.
Haitians are about 18% of the buyer pool right now
In Homestead.
in Homestead.
Wow.
And
Okay.
also the next category is Nicaragua.
Okay.
Nicaragua is right at
Uh,
around 15%, And then people from New York,
Sliding south.
people from New York are attracted to Florida
Right.
and south because we don't have any income tax, state
Right.
income tax, we don't have any
A
capital
lot of good
gains tax.
benefits.
Right. So New York, Texas, California is driving people to Florida,
Okay.
and Venezuela comes after that. So
Right.
that was interesting. So again, shout out to the Haitian people, man. If you
Right.
guys are looking for a house, feel free to hit
Hit,
us up. Avanti
hit
Way
him up. That's
Realty.
right.
We're right here in downtown Homestead.
And when you need that internet and your phones, hey, I'm local too.
Yeah.
It is up.
So that's what's going on in the housing market. People are afraid right now. I noticed that when somebody does qualify for a home, there's like 4 or 5 people on that mortgage.
Wow.
So
Means the
before,
whole
when it was
family
just
staying.
before it was just you and your wife,
Right.
or it was just you by yourself.
Right.
Now it's you, the
Mom,
wife,
dad,
cousin,
yeah.
sister, brother.
That's it.
Little do those people know that at some point, some of those people are going to want to get off
Right.
that loan.
But here's what I've found: that 4 persons in a house, each person can afford the mortgage. you can pay that mortgage down within 5, 10 years if each person paid a mortgage, and you can pay the principal. So one paid a mortgage, the other one pays the principal, and each of them is four of them, and each of them pay. They can kill that mortgage. Then the next person go buy a house and move on and on and on.
Well,
So pretty much a community.
from a lending perspective,
Right.
Since the prices are kind of high
Right.
in the area, let's say the average price is 500,000, right? The person that is working here
Right.
says, "Hey, I only make $60,000," and they go,
Right.
"Well,
That's
you
not
don't
enough.
qualify.
Right.
So let's add another income." So then there comes the husband, and then
Mhm.
there comes the cousin and the sister and
Okay.
all these people
Makes up
together
to qualify.
collectively to qualify for the house. So it's not like they've got disposable income that they can pay it down,
Right.
as to the point you were saying. It's just so that they can qualify for the home.
Definitely understand
But
that.
let's say it's a son,
Right.
and that son is, "Hey, I'm all for the family. I want to participate. I want to contribute." And then the son goes out and gets a girlfriend,
Right.
and
I
then
want my own space.
and then let's say he gets married.
Yeah.
He says,
Okay.
"Hey, got a new wife.
Right.
I'd like to have my own space.
I want to come.
I need off this loan."
Right.
And then they go, "Well, wait a minute. We qualified with your income."
Right.
That's what I mean about it's going to be a problem somewhere
Mm.
down the line where some of
Okay.
those people want to get off that loan
Right.
and they cannot get off the loan.
Wow.
Now, if you do get off the loan, if they wanted to like quit claim deed or something, like they wanted to qualify, if the bank ever realizes that you've transferred the title out of someone's name,
Right. They will
they
call the
have
note.
they have the ability to, it's the acceleration clause,
Right.
right? And they'll call the note due in 90 days.
Mm.
Saying, "Hey, your whole loan is due now."
Right. So consult.
Right.
I got it. I definitely
Consult.
understand that, man. It's been quite interesting that how that works. And
Right.
thank you for sharing that insight. So, what else is going on out there, man? Well, I've seen some new ordinance coming around, and
Yeah.
regarding to the
Yeah.
fencing stuff in Homestead. I mean, what are your thoughts there? I mean, obviously we're homeowners, and all of us have fence. And now, as far as a chain link fence,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there?
So
What pivot
I
is that?
saw the ordinance that came out, and the ordinance says the city of Homestead is no longer going to allow chain link
Fence.
fences
Wow. Okay.
to be installed in your home. Now, that doesn't mean those of you that have
Mhm.
chain link fences already installed, you don't need to be worried. You're grandfathered in. However, if you ever wanted to replace, or anybody new that's going to get a permit to
Right.
install a fence, it can no longer be chain link. It's got to be vinyl, aluminum, brick. I've seen those new white style fences. They look like PVC,
Right.
which they look nice.
They do.
But I'm sure they are more expensive than your traditional,
Chain link fence. And
chain link fence.
so at the end of the day, so some changes are coming down the pipeline, and a lot of persons will see it. Well, it was cost effective to get the chain link fence. Now it's a thing. It's becoming a thing of the past.
Right.
A lot of persons going towards the wood or that whatever metal that is that
Right.
looks like fence. But I think the aftermath or the aftercare, you purchase it 6 months in, it looks great. Then all of a sudden it started to
Right.
look like this.
Right.
So I'm not sure why that change is occurring, and it'll be interesting to find out why that's
Well, I
happening.
think the change is occurring because the city wants to enhance the aesthetics.
Okay.
They want that curb appeal to be nicer in the city of
Right.
Homestead, and I can understand why. Because if you're going to sell a house,
Right.
right, and you don't clean it up, and it's
Right.
just a mess when you walk in there,
Right.
it's not a very good first impression,
No.
and you're not going to get the highest and best offer.
Right.
So
Curb appeal.
one of the things that I've always felt that Homestead can enhance, can do better is, that we pick up the bulk trash
Right.
twice a month,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That means you're allowed to put bulky trash, big things in front of your yard,
Right.
and the city will come with its cherry picker
Right,
and pick it up, and which is a great service.
Right.
But what's happened in the past is nobody abided by
The rules of
the
that.
rules of when,
So cement and all that.
because
other
you're only
clunky-
allowed to put it out a day before, right?
Right.
So if you woke up one day and said, "I feel like trimming trees,"
Right.
and it could be any day of the week
Right.
or a weekend, you just
Right.
go, you start trimming, and then boom, you've got this huge pile of trash in front
Right.
of your yard. So let's say that for another 2 or 3 weeks,
Right.
that cherry
Right.
picker is not
Picker.
going to come. So if I live in that neighborhood,
It's
every
gonna.
time I drive by, I got to see a pile of
Right.
trash.
Sore eye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on your
It's
eyes. So I think code enforcement is doing a better job
okay.
now. But in the past, that is what has made Homestead not look as nice.
Pristine as it should
So
look.
as
Right.
people were being priced out of the areas up north, and they're saying, you know what? I've heard some good things about Homestead.
So,
Let me go drive down there and take a look.
right.
You would, and let's say they've never been to Homestead.
Right. First impression. Right.
They come to Homestead and they look around and go, this place looks like a dump.
No. Right. Is
Not
this
very
what they were
nice.
talking about?
Not very nice. So I think the city is trying to implement, rules and regulations to enhance the aesthetics,
Clean it up.
clean it up.
Clean
We all
up
want to
the
live in
area.
a
You
nice
pull
city.
up and you want, if you invite family and friends from out of town or just guests, and they coming to the neighborhood, then
Right.
you're like, man, where do you live? I mean,
Right.
the fact that the first thing they see, and then again, our storm season is coming soon, so
Yes.
therefore, if you have stuff on the curb that's out there for so long,
Right.
I mean, and rightfully so, you may be doing some repairs and trying to beautify it, and
Right.
unfortunately, they only pick up twice, all
Correct.
right, but there's a lot of stuff, and persons usually add to that. So at night, they come and they add to your piles. Like that wasn't there in the morning. That's
Right.
not from my pile.
Right.
What can you do about those? You know,
And the city is moving in the right direction because if if you lived in the Gables, you can't even have a normal standard real estate sign. You can
right?
only have those small, tiny, you know, um,
Like a plaque.
it's a small sign because the city of Coral Gables says we don't want these big signs and people driving by seeing these big real estate signs there. So Gables have put in their rules and regulations to maintain
Mm,
one of the most
right,
beautiful cities I think in the country because Gables is a pretty nice place.
right,
So we don't got to reinvent the wheel. We're not the Gables, but
right.
we can't. We can always
But
say we can aspire to be.
right, we can step our game up.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, obviously they're charging more for stuff, and they figured if they come to the community, you want your community to look nice. We all want to see our communities looking nice. We don't want to always kind of reference the Gable. Why can't we be the Gables here in
right.
Homestead? I mean, obviously Homestead is a beautiful city, but there's always room for improvement, and that's one of them. I feel that they're tweaking to make it better, and I think that's a good thing if it's designed to make it better.
Correct. Correct. So we in the neighborhood that we in the northwest neighborhood of
Right.
Homestead. There's also these big rigs that park
Tell me
just
about
park
it.
on the side of
Side
the
of the road,
road.
right?
So I think Homestead and code enforcement is really trying to curb what those people are doing. And pretty soon you will not see those big rigs and those trucks parking on the side of the road because it's just an
Right.
eyesore.
And
You
and
wake
I've
up, you
seen
walk out
those.
of your house, and you see these big rigs.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not supposed to be
And the
there.
person that parks them there don't even stay on the block. That's the other thing too. So they usually park, release it from their vehicle, and they separate and leave that a bunch of cars park along the track. So here it is, the tracks itself always need to be cleaned. And I think that if the train is not moving through, I think it should always be groomed. I think I don't know if they do it
Yeah,
once a week, once a month, but nonetheless, they need to do a better job, I would say, to keeping the tracks
I
clean and
agree.
clear. You know what I mean? Also, it keeps the rodents and other things that's on the tracks off, and amongst curb appeal.
Agreed. At one point, the city was talking about potentially making the train track
Uh-huh.
and the area, the greenery around it, like a linear park,
Oh,
which would have
okay.
been really nice.
Nice.
That would have been really nice for you to go. You could have had some benches there,
Yeah.
and you can go walk around the tracks with your family. That would have been really nice. I'd like to see if the city is still
Right.
pursuing, but I know they had some issues with the owners of the track, which is
Oh,
CSX.
right, right, right,
They didn't want to convey the property or they didn't want to maintain, and they've been being fined
right.
for not maintaining.
So it's easier to get fined than it
Yeah,
is to correct it. So do you see the train? I know the train many years ago would come south, and you would hear it in the morning, and it was a cool thing to see and
yeah,
hear. I mean, in the first thing in the morning, you had the screeching sound of the train slowing down because that cross track
yeah.
there off of what is that? Uh,
Campbell?
I guess of the cross track, so it
Yeah.
stops right there at the end. But it was pretty cool to see it. So I don't know if a train even comes that far
No,
south
I
anymore.
don't think it's. I've never seen it there.
Really?
Never
Okay,
in all
but
of my years. I've never seen a train pass there.
I would always hear it, and I just know it goes into that little or that that building there in the
Yeah,
corner. But nonetheless, we would like to see those type of things get taken care of. And I know that they have some, I would say, new management in the city, so they're
yeah.
making some moves over there. So I'm excited to see that they continue to beautify the city.
Also, there's been some noise here in the downtown area of Homestead. Another ordinance where they are no longer going to allow you
Mhm.
to have, like any advertisements outside of your storefront.
What?
So if you have an A-frame,
Right.
trying to lure people
Right,
in,
right, right.
you're going to get a citation.
What?
So that's another way the city is trying to enhance the aesthetics, because if if you've got all these crazy ideas on
Right.
how to attract people driving by or walking by, you can create all kinds of weird things to put out there.
Of course, but there should be a limitation or a certain amount. And yes, there are excessive use of those things, but there, in my space with a storefront, having an A-frame outside as a neat one
Yeah,
shouldn't be impactful to anyone.
I agree.
Also, I feel that they should have some limitations,
Right.
of what to be out there. But having nothing out there poses a concern for the local businessman that's trying to survive
Yes.
and keep their doors open. I mean, that's one avenue that they can use to not be so expensive. And I know that they consider it being a hazard if it can fly away and
Yeah.
potentially create damage. But they can also keep it close to the door. If the wind comes, they can remove it. Just like the feathers they put on
Right.
the ground.
Right.
I've seen a lot of persons, they leave those feathers up, and those feathers after a while, they get old.
Right.
So I feel that they could definitely do a better job in making sure, hey, if you're going to have one item out here, pick an item.
Yeah. For example, the A-frames.
Right.
We're in downtown. We would love to see a lot more walkability, a lot more people. But since they're not here,
Right.
we're utilizing whatever material
Yeah.
we have and that we think is aesthetically pleasing. An A-frame
Right.
that is nice, it's well maintained, it's not going to fly away.
Right.
There should be some limitations or some leeway
Right.
on at least an A-frame.
Or even if it's for a period of time per year. You can say, you know what, for the next few months as you're a new business, have it for the first 6 months of
Right.
business to try to create or generate business for your business.
Right.
They say a business without sign is a sign of no business.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? So some good information, some good insights, guys, about the trends that's going on in our local community here in Homestead. And as far as the fencing, that's the new ordinance, and I'm sure that whatever taxes that they're going to impose. I heard something is going to be coming on the pipelines regarding that. I mean, there are a lot of little changes happening that's necessary for the community. Some of it we're not going to be happy with, and some of it we're going to have to learn to deal with, because it's just coming.
But we can always voice our opinion,
amen.
and we could always let the city of Homestead know how we feel, because we're the ones talking to customers, talking to residents. We're the ones that got our
On the
ear.
front lines.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We know what's going on with the residents here in Homestead, so we want to make sure that the city knows what is trending and what the people are saying.
So we are talk visual.
That's right, talk visual. If there's any questions you guys have, feel free to drop a comment below and let us know, and we'll be happy to address any of those questions.
Or if you have any other topics that you guys would like to hear, I mean, us talk about, that's something that we've experienced, and just come with some Q&As. I mean, we're going to get to a point where we would like to invite guests. So if you would like to be a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to Julio or myself. We would love to have you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys very much.
Peace out.